Hello and welcome back to the channel of nonsense. This is the all-new BMW X1. It's a real-world car for real people. It's a family SUV that's designed to give you the things that matter, mostly interior space. It's not designed to give you lap times, big smoky drifts, and it's not a BMW that's going to give Joe Achilles a curious throbbing sensation in his nether regions, but it's for people like me who have problems like fitting child seats into cars, fitting prams into boots. It's not going to be the most exciting thing, but the bits of me that need to fit prams and child seats are very excited. So let's check it out, find out if it's any good. So here it is then, the new BMW X1. It is based on the new BMW 2 Series Active Tourer, which I quite liked when I drove it earlier this year. It was unsexy, but it was quite practical, which is probably why I liked it, because it's quite a lot like me. But anyway, this X1 costs from £34,000 for an entry-level sport model, £36,000 for an X-Line, or from 39 grand for this, the M Sport. And this one's got four-wheel drive and quite a pokey engine, so it's actually 50 grand after options. Now, I think the previous generation X1 always looked a little bit like it still wanted to be a hatchback, but this actually looks more like a baby X3. I think if you come around the side here, excuse my shadow as I try to not step in cow poo, I think it looks like a baby X3 now. It looks quite nice. It's boxier. It's just a bit more grown up looking. I mean, around the front, you certainly got BMW's big grille philosophy going on, which you'll either love, hate, or, well, like me, not be too bothered by. You've got LED headlights on all models. M Sports get adaptive LEDs, this has got them. And I think it just looks all right. It looks quite nice. It just looks more mature than before. Now in terms of engines, I don't normally talk about engines, but there's some quite sensible ones shared with lots of mini models, and the underpinnings of this will become future minis. So there's an S-Drive 18D, which gets 150 horsepower diesel. There's a 210 4x4 diesel called the 23D. There's a 215 horsepower petrol, which this one is, called the X-Drive 23i. And there are two plug-in hybrids. There's a 25E and a 30E, both of which are quite fast. And there's an all-electric version, hallelujah, called the iX1, which can do 272 miles on charge, which I'm going to drive halfway through this video, so stay tuned for that. The hybrids can do 55 miles on electric, and that's pretty decent, to be honest, for a plug-in hybrid. Now, in terms of things like the wheels and stuff, they look quite nice. You've got nice big 19s on this M Sport one. No, they're 20s. No, they're not. They are. Now the inside of the X1 is probably where you're going to spend most of the time, so I'll focus on that. Look, these nice flush fit door handles. But yeah, let's have a look inside. But first of all, can we just appreciate this floating center console? So you've got storage space under there. By lifting that up, BMW's given you some really accessible storage. You've got two USBs down there, a wireless charger over there, some cup holders. It's just very well thought out, and that is all very similar to the 2 Series Active Tourer. You've got nice big door bins, you've got space for a big bottle there and stuff there. And this one's got the upgraded calm and hard-on sound system. And you've got this weird basket weave thing there, which I'm not sure I'm a big fan of. But there's two infotainment screens, which I need to show you because there's some controversy there. Now this is the interior of the new X1, and it's quite a fine-looking thing. At first glance, you've got these metal strips here under the air vents, and you've got what looks like one curved screen, but it's actually two curved screens. You've got a 10.9 inch touchscreen there, and you've got a 10.25 inch driver's display there, which lights up and shows you all sorts of information, which I'll show you in a little bit. Now, this is my first bugbear with this car, same as my bugbear with the 2 Series Active Tourer. You will notice there's no iDrive controller here. Normally in BMWs you get a twiddly knob here, which means you can operate the infotainment system while keeping your eyes on the road, but that has gone in this car and in the 2 Series Active Tourer, and I think BMW is going to slowly phase it out, which is a real shame, because I think touching screens takes your eyes off the road and it's a bit more dangerous. BMW's also removed most of the physical climate control buttons, so sure, you can put your windscreen heating on max and your rear window heating on there, but there's no way to adjust the temperature without going through menus. So you get instant access everywhere, whatever menu you're in, to the temperature, but to do anything else, you've got to go into this menu here, which is a little bit annoying. So if I want to put my heated seat or heated steering wheel on, I've got to go there. And no, there isn't a heated steering wheel button on the steering wheel like in the BMW 3 Series. Other things to note, this left-hand paddle has boost written on it because this is a mild hybrid with a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which is basically a fancy starter motor. That will give you a 20 horsepower boost for 10 seconds if you hold that down, and it shows you that on the dash. Now I fired up the engine so I can show you the dashboard in the X1, and lots of it has kind of been pinched from the range-topping iX electric car. So if you press this button here, you can configure the dashboard. You can choose the layout, you can choose the content. I've been getting about 32 mpg from this. You can show your map and all this kind of stuff, and you can adjust the way it looks as well. It's very funky. There's also a head-up display fitted on this one, and you can adjust all that. You probably won't be able to see it that well. Let me see, actually. This will be YouTube first and me successfully showing a head-up display. It shows your speed and the speed limit. It won't focus, sorry, you're going to have to look at some little voles scurrying around that bank. Otherwise, I quite like it in here. Loads of storage. I really like the wireless charging mat here. It's got a little thing so you can put your phone on it and clamp your phone up against it and it should charge. My phone's a bit duff. Otherwise, lovely. Big panoramic sunroof in this one as well. I'm going to hop in the back and show you what life is like in the X1 for children and rear seat passengers. Maybe your husband, if you've consigned him there. So far, so boring, frankly, but this is where it gets really exciting for people like me who like back seat space. BMW says this has got some of the best dimensions in its class. They say it's got the best headroom in its class, it's got the widest middle seat in its class, and it hasn't got much of a transmission tunnel either. And if you get the full EV, that's the iX1, or either of the hybrids, you don't lose floor space because the batteries are all under the boot floor, and under the floor, but they don't push the floor up into the cabin. So I should be able to fit my size 10s under that seat. Let's find out if I can. As that annoying Churchill car insurance advert from the 2010s used to say, oh yes, I can fit my trotters under the seat with room to spare. That's in my driving position. I've got more legroom than I had in the BMW 3 Series that I drove earlier today. It's phenomenal. I've got acres of headroom, even though I've got a panoramic sunroof, which usually drops into your headroom a little bit. Shut the doors. I don't feel claustrophobic, but that glass is quite high. So if you've got small kids in child seats, they're probably not going to be able to see out, which is a bit of a niggle if they get car sick. Now, I've talked about this wide middle seat. It also gives you a reasonably wide armrest with cup holders as well. I've got USB-Cs down there. You're probably not going to be able to see because it's too dark. And I've got a little storage place for my foot, which I've just made muddy. Sorry, BMW. I do quite like these door handles. They're just thin slivers of metal. Slivers? I can never say that. Slivers of metal. And they open the door, as you would hope, really. But anyway, I should also point out that the X1 has a sliding rear bench, so I can slide my seat forward and back, forward and back. You can't do that in the hybrid or the electric version. But anyway, let's check out the boot. Another area where the X1 is class leading, or at least better than something like Volvo XC40, is the boot, which I've forgotten to take my crap out of. It is 540 litres, this boot, which is pretty large. You've got space under there, and yeah, that's a pretty decent amount of space. It does drop though. If you get the electric version, it drops to 490 litres in the iX1, so that's 50 litres smaller than this. And the PHEV as well has got a slightly smaller boot, but I think that's a really good practical space, even if you've got massive prams. Yeah, I like it a lot. I know I'm getting excited over boring things, but I'm a dad, this is why I get excited over now. Oh yeah, did I say they've all got electric opening boots? They all get electric opening boots, even the entry-level version. That's enough waffle about the back seats and the boot. You're not going to buy an X1 if it drives like a total dog, so let's get behind the wheel, hit the road, and find out if it goes woof woof, or if it goes, yeah, I'm quite a good SUV actually, because it can talk. Right, let's go for a drive in the BMW X1. I'm going to put my seatbelt on because it's the law, and you're a silly person if you don't. You put your foot on the brake and you press the start button, which is at the end of this floating centre console there. Now, this is a 220 horsepower, 215 horsepower petrol version. It's all that BMW had left me to pick from. All the other journalists had taken the sensible ones. So yeah, this is four-wheel drive, and it's going to be thirsty. It's going to be fast. and it's not going to be my pick, but let's just show you. This is quite brisk. I'm on a 60 limit road. That's 30 miles an hour, that's 40, that's 50, and that is 60. It's just a bit too fast. It's basically a slightly detuned Mini Cooper S engine, and I can already tell you that this car is not quite as cosseting as you might want it to be. It doesn't really float over those bumps, it jiggles with them. Now this is an M Sport version, which will have slightly firm suspension, but in the UK, X1 M Sport versions get something called adaptive suspension, and normally that means you can manually choose between sport and comfort mode for the suspension. You can't actually do that, it just automatically constantly adjusts for the sort of driving you're doing, which for me is being stuck behind a butcher's van parked across the road, very suspiciously opposite a cow field. If I give him a toot, is he going to come out with a bolt gun and finish me off? Hello? Oh, what's waking him up? I think he's having a little play on his mobile phone. It's not good, is it? Not good. Thank you, Mr. Butcher, or Mrs. Butcher. I'm not really sure. Is it Pat? It's not Pat Butcher. But anyway, going over some bubbly bits of road, and it's just a bit, yeah, Volvo XC40 from memory is a little bit less jiggly, but otherwise tyre noise is not very noticeable, wind noise also not very noticeable. I get up to 60 once I'm around this corner and you can see what I mean. BMW does a reasonably good job of making its cars nice and refined these days. Let's boot it up to 60 so you can hear. Yeah, 60 miles an hour on a bumpy country road. I don't have to shout to you. I think that's really impressive. And that also bodes well for all the other cars BMW's going to have coming out on this platform. Or Minis. Now, the steering, we need to talk about the steering. I know it's quite a nerdy thing to talk about, but the steering is super light, which is useful if you do lots of parallel parking and driving around town. You've just got your main beams on. What is it about highway maintenance vehicles and having the worst driving standards in the country? But anyway, yeah. Light steering, very good around town for parallel parking. You're not having to put any effort in to twiddle the wheel. But when you're on a bumpy country road like that and you want to drive quickly, like a BMW driver should, it feels a bit unnerving, slightly. It doesn't feel very confidence inspiring. But yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a classic BMW. I've just got out of a BMW 3 Series and that still feels special and sporty. Nah, none of it here. None of that here. It just feels like a competent SUV. But as a self-proclaimed boring person that has a family and that drives normally when he's got kids in the car, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. It's packed with safety tech, lane keep assist, all sorts of automatic emergency stuff, but none of it is annoying. It's just there to help you out. BMW does a good job of that. Do I sound whelmed? I'm whelmed by the way this drives, but that doesn't undermine the fact this is a good car for families. So anyway, let's get back to me. We'll do an outro. I'll go around this corner quickly, and then remember there's a temporary traffic light just around the blind corner that's going to be red. Back to you, Timothy. Do an outro. Do it well for once. So in conclusion, what do I think of the BMW X1? I really like it. I really like it. As I said in my introduction, I've overexposed myself. Never overexpose yourself in a lay-by. The police will come. It's a really good SUV. Plenty of space. Really high practicality score in terms of rear seat space and boot space. The infotainment's also great to use, except for the fact you have to touch it now. And if they didn't used to have an iDrive controller in this car, I wouldn't be moaning about that. But they've taken away something that used to make it safer and nicer to use, which means that's a negative. The other negative, loss of climate controls. Other negatives, it's not mega fun to drive, but it's comfortable enough and certainly quick enough in this xDrive 23i form. I would just get a lower powered version really, maybe not even an M Sport version, and I would just save a bit of money because 50 grand is quite a lot. I'd get one for about 38. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful. I really like the BMW X1. It is just a nice, sensible, smallish SUV, but it's big enough on the inside to cater for an actual family of 4. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I slightly ran out of enthusiasm at the end there, but do like this video if that was helpful, and if you're thinking of buying one of these, please subscribe to the channel because I've got more very sensible car reviews coming up and some slightly silly ones. And go down to the comments and leave me the German word for muddy puddle, because I've just stepped in one while doing this piece to camera. See you next time.